What would you do if you built a machine capable of bending time and watched a screw vanish right before your eyes? Sounds like a movie plot, doesn't it? But this story is real, and it happened to Mike Markham, a young engineer obsessed with pushing the limits of science. It all started with a spark. Literally. Mike spent countless hours tinkering with wires, motors, and scrap metal, trying to understand how energy worked. But one day, that innocent curiosity led to something terrifying. He managed to create an energy field so powerful that it made a screw disappear into thin air. From that moment, he became obsessed. Mike kept refining his machine, but with every test, it demanded more power and seemed to take on a life of its own. Until one day, it took something he could never get back: himself. When Mike vanished, no one knew what to believe. But what came next was even more shocking. Years later, he returned, with a truth that shattered everything we thought we knew about time and reality. What really happened to Mike Markham? Where did he go? And what did he see on the other side? This story will make you question everything. And before we dive deeper into this mind-bending mystery, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next stories that blur the line between science, fate, and the unknown. All he had was a broken toolbox and an insatiable hunger to understand how electricity moved through metal. Neighbors called him the electric boy because they saw him connecting car batteries to doorbells and using barbed wire to try to light bulbs. By his early 20s, his interest had hardened into a single precise goal. He wanted to bend electricity itself. In a friend's garage, he built the centerpiece, an improvised Jacob's ladder. 2 thin metal rods set in a V upon a plank, and a cheap laser clamped between them to steady the blue arc that jumped and snapped like a miniature lightning strike. He scavenged power from old appliance transformers and wound coils that hummed like caged insects. He did not look like a lab scientist. No white coats, no pristine walls, just grease-stained hands, buzzing spools, and wires strung across a concrete floor. In January 1995, something happened he swore no machine had ever done before. He set a steel screw in the gap of the arc. For a fraction of a second it vanished, then reappeared on the plank as if it had slipped through an invisible hole. It was impossible and undeniably real. Instead of hiding the discovery, Mike called Coast to Coast AM and told Art Bell about the vanishing screw. His voice was calm and electric. The country listened. Letters arrived. Some warned him to stop, dangerous, reckless. Others urged him on, keep going. The attention became pressure. He made a reckless choice. He stole 6 industrial transformers to power the rig, tripping the grid in rural Missouri and landing himself 60 days in jail. Prison did not dampen his obsession. It sharpened it. He vowed to stop stealing parts, hunted used transformers in swap meets, bought a camera to document every experiment. The mail never stopped. Support, threats, cash with no return address. Each missive a push and a pull. The experiments escalated. Smoother arcs, millimeter adjustments, bolts, and nuts tested again and again. Small animals were used in trials that left them ill hours after crossing the phantom line. Radio broadcasts that had once been triumphs grew tense. "I'm close," he told listeners. "I just need more power and a better field." His voice trembled in ways it hadn't before. By 1996, the tone had changed. He returned to the show, less boastful and more strained. He spoke of a field that seemed to pulse with a life of its own, of objects appearing and disappearing as if uncertain whether to stay. A March 1997 update was scheduled. The nation waited. On the night of the show, the studio found only voicemail, calls unanswered, letters unopened. Then the fire. Neighbors smelled burning copper. Firefighters found a darkened garage, wires dripping, and a faintly impressed circle carved deep into the concrete slab. The official cause: electrical overload. Most disturbing of all, Mike was gone. No body, no remains, just warped tools and a single warm scrap of paper discovered among the ashes. On it, ink trembling, "It's not about time." Below, "It's about how you see things." He was declared missing. Tabloids dubbed him the man with the time machine who vanished, and the story slipped into folklore. Early internet forums swarmed with theories. Some insisted he'd succeeded and never returned. Others argued he had returned, but to the wrong decade. The rumor found an odd corroboration. A 1930 report of a man's body on a Californian beach, strangely dressed, and carrying a small metallic device the police couldn't identify. Could Mike have been thrown back to 1930? Was the device evidence? The speculation multiplied. Grainy documentary clips, amateur comparisons, midnight discussions where science and myth entwined. In 2006, a small flame flared again when a university blogger received diagrams labeled Vortex Stabilization Frame Gen 3, allegedly sent by Mike. The originating IP traced to a public library in Kauai, then went cold. Trace or hoax? Fast forward to 2022. Andrew and Melanie, a young couple who had bought an old farmhouse in rural Ohio, discovered a hidden wooden box in the attic stamped with a metal plaque. Markham. Do not open until the right time. Inside were wrapped diaries, corroded circuit boards, and a faded Polaroid. The photograph showed a young man beside a circular metal frame of pipes and wires. On the back, June 21, 2021, it worked, but not how I expected. There was also a diary entry marking the farmhouse as a site where the magnetic field remains anomalously stable. 2 weeks later, a call. My name is Mike Markham. He arrived at their door older, worn, and dry around the edges. He carried only a thin folder. He told them how he'd spent years off the grid reconstructing memory, to live the same decade twice and see if remembering it differently would change the memory. He revealed a truth that cut through decades of rumor. His machine hadn't teleported him in the usual sense. Instead, the feedback circuit in his Jacob's ladder had fractured his biological time. His internal clock fell out of sync with the world. I didn't move, Mike said quietly. My time and the world's time slipped apart. I was simply not where time expected me to be. It was a technical explanation that read like poetry and like danger. His machine had warped perception more than it had braided chronologies. Questions multiplied. How do you stitch a man back to a timeline? What did the warm scrap in the ashes mean? Was the 1930 beach body a consequence of two temporal seams touching? Mike spoke of overlapping memories, of oscillating moments, of a field that, when perturbed, made the world shiver. He returned not because the machine pulled him back, but because he learned to walk his way home. The farmhouse kitchen became an impromptu archive as Mike opened his folder. Annotated curves of magnetic flux, frame sketches, and an answer to the message carved in the concrete. It's not about time. It's about how you see it. He insisted his device had fractured perception, not reality itself, and that sometimes the world keeps slits where a person's gaze can slip through. He was back, an uneasy figure between legend and explanation, with diaries in hand and a warning in his wake. Toy with reality's folds, and you change more than physics. You change how you are found. The question that remained sharper now was this. Who else had looked through the seam, and what had they seen? He spoke of waking up in Oregon in 1999, burned, disoriented, with no memory of how he got there. Bank accounts gone, friends who claimed not to know him, family left uncertain. Mike said anyone near the prototype felt something odd. Moments that vanished, flashes of déjà vu, the unsettling sense of being a step ahead, or behind, themselves. What silenced everyone was another finding. Each test erased pieces of his memory. It wasn't just the idea of time travel that terrified people. It was the realization that time seemed to forget you faster than the people who loved you could. He showed a page with crossed-out names, early volunteers who gradually stopped remembering him and the experiments. Mike vowed never to repeat it. At dawn, he slipped away down a dirt road with only a backpack and a USB drive. Andrew and Melanie locked the attic, filed away the schematics, and stopped talking about it. The house returned to normal, but the echo of those pages remained, a warning and a challenge. We close this chapter with a heavy truth. Some mysteries don't just pull us outward, they take pieces of us with them. While some secrets stay buried in dusty trunks, others re-emerge as dangerous invitations to keep searching. If this story struck a chord, don't stop here. There's another account tied to this mystery that may change how you think about memory itself. Subscribe, leave a like, and tap the video beside this one. The next part of the investigation is already waiting for you.